The clock's ticking, as they say. I wrote this down. I'm just going to read it. A couple of nights ago, as I cut through the layers of my own personality, the facade of my being, who I pretend to be, that is, my hypocritical self, my action upon the stage of human experience, I find a confused person. I could blame my confusion on my wife, my children, or other close emotional relationships. I could blame my confusion on the government, the mass media, the vicissitudes of religion, hepatitis C, type 2 diabetes, post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as the nightmare continues, my dog, or most any other source other than my own failure not to define what my education is, but also to just simply think critically. One can apply the Socratic method of self-questioning and self-answering, always leading to an additional question in the hope of attaining some remnant of personal clarity. The problem is the overwhelming flood of seemingly disconnected information. I feel as though I am drowning. I can't breathe, I can't act, I can only react, hoping somehow I will reach the top and make my way back to the shore. Drowning in this sea of information. But to the shore of what? Was it all lies that bonded together this house that I experience as myself? In the 10th chapter of the book of Job in the Hebrew Bible, Job says, I am full of confusion. These words, this book, certainly thousands of years old. Job lived in a world of anarchy. No political authority to recover his stolen property. No tornado insurance. No lawyers. No courts. The adversary then as now was Satan. In Psalms 44 we find in verse 15, my confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face has covered me, for the voice of him that reproaches and blasphemes, by reason of the enemy and avenger. In Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 14, verse 33, Paul writes, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the gatherings of the saints. And so this revised edition of New World Disorder 2. Yes, people, there is a conspiracy. Those who conspire against the goodness given in our souls from the moment of our conception. This is the adversary of human beings, known as Satan and his devils. Again, I grant you that's a theological question that cannot be resolved in a mathematical formula, whatever. So what's the good news today? In Luke's Gospel, chapter 6, verse 30, Luke was a Gentile. He wasn't a Jew. So it makes sense that Luke may have written his Gospel in Greek. Referring back to my prior video. But what Jesus says, according to Luke, is give to every man that asks of thee, and of him that takes away thy goods, ask them not again. That is what Jesus said to do. And that is what Job did. Job didn't go after the Sabaeans and the Chaldeans and try to get his stuff back. Of course, there was no insurance company to I mean, and even if there had been, the grief of losing all of his children would have even filed a claim. But the archaeologists, the anthropologists, the translators of minutiae, the wizards, and the devils come and go. Yet the anarchy of God remains. Called anarchy only because, like Jesus said, having ears to hear, we hear not. Having eyes to see, we see not. And, you know, most of my life I haven't seen because I haven't even been looking at the outside world, at somebody else, at history or anything else. Always concerned with my own emotional disease, or my own jungle that I've got to get through, called my life. As I've studied and as I've observed my own so-called Christianity, I was saved, so-called saved, in a tent revival meeting by a good, you know, I mean, the man conducting the tent revival meeting was not an ordained preacher, but he was a good man. He was an honest man. I remember the man, and he was not an evil man. He certainly wasn't in it for the money. But when I was 19 years old, I went to Vietnam and I killed a bunch of people. I joined in with a government idea that let's go over and kill some Vietnamese people. Yes, I was drafted, but I didn't have to go. There were Christians who didn't go, who were drafted and didn't go, who went to prison, who did something other than go to Vietnam and kill people. So that's the problem with Christianity, and it's the problem with a lot of us, is that we say one thing and we do another. And the place to start is like Gandhi said, you know, start with be the revolution that you want the world to be. And that's hard to do. Talk is cheap. But anyways, I just, you know, I was reading Job and then I was reading Luke, and I thought, well, you know, there's some similarity there between Job, what Job did and what Jesus said to do. But, you know, these are open questions. But that's all I got for today. So, you know, try to buy something that's not got poison in it, that's not been made by slave labor. Try to forget about all the damn junk. And, you know, I guess I could, if I knew something funny, I would tell you. You know, I could tell you about carrying gasoline down the road in my guitar, but I didn't do that. I was never that desperate. But, you know, I can think of things that are funny that almost happened in some of my adventures in my life. But I've only got 10 minutes, and it takes me an hour to tell a real story. So maybe I'll do that and cut it into 10 parts or something. But anyways, personal anarchy. Good morning.